Hey everyone, welcome back. Last week we started sharpening this santoku, which had gotten pretty dull. We began the process on a 220 grit stone so that we could set a new edge bevel. While the knife is sharp right now and will cut, it's not that smooth. It makes quite a loud noise when we cut through paper, and when we look at it, it's not a smooth cut. There's little bits of paper hanging off. As well, if we tried to use this knife on a cutting board, it would feel really toothy and not very nice. So we want to refine that edge by taking it up a couple of stones. Today we're going to start on a 1000 grit stone. This will ensure that we smooth the edge bevel out and we get a nicer cut. Again, just like the 220 grit stone or the coarse stone, we're going to break this knife down into 3 sections. First the heel, then the belly, then the tip. We're going to sharpen exactly like we did with the 220 grit stone, maintaining a consistent angle and using these fingers to zero in on the exact portion of the knife that we're sharpening. Again, we're using a little bit more pressure on the outward stroke, and the in stroke is meant for consistency. We are feeling for a burr, but not quite as an aggressive burr as the 220 grit stone. As we feel a little bit more comfortable with our knife and our sharpening skills, we can start to transition from the heel to the belly without stopping. This will ensure smooth scratch patterns all along the edge bevel, which will result in a nicer cut. Now that I'm onto the belly, I want to feel for a burr all the way up. So we're going to move to the tip. Again, we have to angle our elbow way up when getting the very tip of the knife to compensate for that edge geometry. Once I feel a consistent burr all along this edge, we're going to flip it over and continue the sharpening process. Remembering on this side, there's more pressure coming towards me. Feeling for burr, onto the belly. Now onto the tip. Once I can feel a consistent burr all along this edge, we're going to return to the original side and strop the knife on our stone. 1, 2, and then with the weight of the knife, raising it up ever so slightly, we drag it back to the tip. We usually transition to the leather strop as we approach our medium stone for honing our knife. We will get more into honing in the final video. But I think it's important to hone your knife between every stone. Again, we do a paper check to make sure there's no inconsistencies in the edge bevel and that we're ready to move on to our final stone. We can feel it's getting much smoother now, and we always test the tip to make sure it grabs the paper. For this knife, we are going to choose to polish on a 4000 grit stone. This knife has a Rockwell hardness of 61, and although it is a Western knife, it's made with nice, harder Swedish steel, so it can take a refinement up to 4000. Again, we're going to use the exact same technique that we've been using for the past 2 stones except we're going to let up a little bit on the pressure. We still want to raise a tiny little bit of a burr, but barely noticeable. Same technique, fingers zeroing in on the bevel. This finger is for holding my angle, and the thumb is creating a little bit more pressure as well. Feeling for a little tiny burr, I can feel it all along here. We're not going to spend as much time on these higher grit stones because we did all the work on the 220 grit. We're doing a visual check to make sure that the light is traveling up the bevel evenly and there's no inconsistencies. Looks good. Good, consistent burr all along. Now we're going to strop the knife on the stone. 2 passes, 1 back. Dry off the knife. Strop our knife on a leather strop. And do the paper test. It should be nice and smooth, making less noise, and it should feel nice and smooth on the cutting board. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Next up, we're going to discuss stropping and honing your knife. For more information, visit www.thecooksedge.com or come down to 63 Pownell Street and scope out some pretty awesome knives.